Okay, howdy, hackers. Welcome to the Figma Dev Code workshop. We're going to hang out here for a little bit so that everybody who is just hopping off of previous streams can take some time to filter on in. Welcome everybody to the stream. Help me know that you're here. I would love it if you could drop a comment about where you're tuning in from today. Me personally, I'm tuning in from Wisconsin over in the United States. And make sure to, while you're in between workshops, take some time to get a hydration break. I've got a full water bottle hanging out with me on my desk. Welcome, welcome everybody. Ooh, I'm loving the variety of places that we're tuning in from. For those of you that was in Rose's stream, how was it? It looked like it was a very fun stream. I wasn't able to catch it because I had to prep for this stream. Make sure I took a shower, freshen up. Gotta beat those CS allegations of never taking a shower, you know? Oh, glad to hear it. That the stream was fantastic. Yeah, honestly, I'm probably gonna go watch that stream later, because I need to get caught up to speed with all of the Mongol content. Anybody in chat like heard of or used Figma before? I imagine there's a few of us that are hopping around between streams just to pick up those points. This is a really easy workshop to pick up those attendance points for. That reminds me, actually, I should probably, since I have all of you here, start encouraging you to check in. Let's see if I can pull up the schedule. Scroll on over to today's workshop, grab that link, which is also pasted in the Discord. And then let's give it, let's see, the time is 1:02 for me. Maybe we'll give it another minute or so before we can get started. Yes, you've tried it before. That's awesome to hear. Honestly, top 10 design tool of all time. I don't know if it beats out pen and paper, but I think it's a pretty fun one to use for the computer. Oh my gosh, way codes. Favorite flavor of potato chip? I'm very much a classic potato chip kind of guy. I have let's see. For my undergrad graduation cap, I had a chance to decorate mine. If I find it later, I'll probably post it under the GHW chat somewhere. But I made a potato chip themed grad cap out of let's see, MDF, which is basically just super compressed like cardboard into like fibrous materials. It's really easy to laser cut with. And so the reason why like I have this obsession with Lay's potato chips, as Wei has pointed out, is because my last name is Lay, Lay. And within the coaches program at Major League Hacking, we actually have a few other Ryans around, which is why I have Ryan number 2 in my Twitch name, or sorry, my stream name. So yeah, I think it helps being able to be the potato chip person. Okay. I think it's just about time to get started. So if you haven't already, make sure you click on the links in the Discord announcements, or you can scan the QR code. That way we make sure that your attendance in this workshop is well accounted for. And let's get started. Just as a quick agenda of all the things that we're going to be covering for today's workshop, we're going to be talking about how you can get access to Figma Dev Mode, completely free student access, because Figma has an education program. That is actually also linked under the Discord. I can also paste this link when the time comes to actually start doing things. We're going to also talk about some of the Figma fundamentals, some very key important shortcuts, and then we're going to learn how to use dev mode to really make that jump between design and actually implementation a whole lot easier. Then we'll build a very quick example project. That way we can see how easy it is to build with Figma now. And then we'll actually play around with it. That means actually dropping in the code that we make from Figma into an HTML file. And we might also play around with a few other really cool Figma features if we have the time for it. So let's get moving into it. What is Figma? Their goal is to make design accessible to all. I know not a lot of us were coding back before the Figma days, but if you were there before, you only really had access to a few wireframing tools on the internet. I think a lot of people probably were doing whiteboarding and pen and paper kind of sketches, which doesn't scale super well when you're trying to, you know, work with a really big team of people. So Figma hops in and made it super easy to work with, especially with web clients. So they've got a few different products under their design pipeline, and they actually have even more than the ones that are listed here. So Figma Design is the one that you might be most familiar with. This is the place where you can design anything really. I've seen and previously done design on posters, on apps, even just general brainstorming. But as far as brainstorming goes, there's actually a better tool for that. But let's continue talking about Figma Design real quick. One of the reasons why Figma is super cool and made such amazing progress as far as being out there, becoming the new standards, because it's got this online multiplayer canvas. It's Google Docs for design, and so it's really common for designers and non-designers to have access to this. And it also makes it super easy to create, share, and test designs. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier about brainstorming and using it as kind of like a whiteboard kind of tool. This is genuinely one of the best whiteboard tools that I've experienced. They make it really easy to, I guess, snap between different figures. Once again, it's also online multiplayer, which means that you can see everybody else's cursors on the screen and everything happens in real time. So this is super useful for basically any kind of loose thinking, very synchronous things. It's very good for. I've also previously used it for mood boarding, which is the process of collecting a bunch of images and things that invoke emotions that you want to be working on in whatever project it is that you're working on. There's a whole bunch of other random tools, not necessarily random tools, but useful tools that you might expect in a whiteboard, which is sticky notes to add comments. Yeah, just a whole bunch of awesome things. Figma Slides. This one was probably unofficially done using Figma Design for a really long time, but now there's a new suite of tools to make it even easier to actually work with making slide decks, beautiful slide decks within Figma. And actually, this slide deck that I'm sharing from right now is actually also built in Figma Slides, which is pretty rad. I've actually seen a few hackathons also starting to adopt using Figma Slides instead of Google Docs or some of the other people in the field, products in the field. And once again, you get to take advantage of the rest of the Figma suite for this. And then this is going to be the key of today's show. This is Figma Dev Mode. I'll talk about some more features that are cool and aren't even listed on these bullet points. But basically, it's designed to be kind of that middle ground between design and the actual implementation of projects. A lot of useful workflows that you can take a peek at. Also very handy for just like flagging when something is ready for the dev team to actually start working on it. Even more cool, I believe, is the code gen section, which we'll be taking advantage of today. So, as I mentioned, yeah, Figma design and dev mode, kind of spoiled that already. Figma, um, if you haven't heard of it, yeah, it's basically the new industry standard. I think almost every company is going to be using Figma. If not, I imagine it's going to be a little bit slower working without it. But yeah, it's very much the new standard of design tools. As far as working with design, there's a few things beyond just the technical, mechanical, uh, I guess like tools behind design, because Figma provides the tools, but it also provides frameworks for you to work with. Kind of similar to programming frameworks, where programming frameworks kind of help you um, build more complicated things using opinionated design. Figma also has its own frameworks. And so instead of starting from scratch, it's like, oh, what fonts am I going to use? And it's like, when should I use all these fonts? We actually have these design systems. And so these are three of the most common ones. And one of the things that I really like about Figma over like any other design tool is that because it's such a standard thing, you can actually look at a lot of other existing design kits and design systems and just like import it into your own. That way you can just like get up and start it and running. I'll talk more about that when we actually get to programming. But yeah, Apple's got one. And so if you want to make like an Apple clone, like, go ahead and do that, or something that is intended to be an iOS release. You can do the same thing for with Google's material design system. And then Figma's got a more, I guess, like generic one. So this is very handy as like a starting point if you don't know what your design system is going to look like yet, and you don't really know what platform it's going to be on, or if you want to go for a more general kind of web platform. So let's talk about why you should actually learn how to design instead of just like letting it be generated. So Figma is something that is very sorry, design is something that's a very human thing. When I studied design, we talked a lot about focusing on human-centered design. That means like actually thinking about the end user, who is going to be using this, and how can we make it as frictionless as possible. That is, how can we make it as easy to use with as few barriers as possible to actually make it something happen. And so generative tools, they take an average of a lot of the things that are out on the web, and not everything is very well designed. So they're not thinking about the end user generally. They're thinking about how to make you, the prompter, happy. And so by learning how to design, we'll be able to make tools, products, and apps, and anything that you want to make that much more relevant. But yeah, very generally, because it's an industry standard, you can imagine that it would be a very marketable skill to have. I have Figma on my resume, um, although it would probably be good to actually start putting some, what's it called, portfolio kind of Figma projects out there. Just, make it actually demonstrate that you know how to use Figma. Anyway, Figma is very portable. You can use it in a whole bunch of places. They've got a mobile app. It works on almost every browser. And they even have like a VS Code extension. I personally don't really use it that much, but I do have it there because most of the time when I'm programming in VS Code, like I need to have a browser up anyway. So I might as well have Figma over there. So let's see. Here's an example of what it looks like on each of these things. You can see it's a very unified experience all the way through and through. And I mean, it's a design tool. It's going to look pretty consistent because they've got a good team of designers. Anyway, let's actually get started with getting an account. So Figma Dev Mode is one of the paywalled features, but if you're a student, you can get free access to it. Or if you work in a school, or if you're a boot camp student, you're going to be able to get access to this. They are very pro education, which, as somebody who's in the education field, is very good thing to see. So mlh.link/Figma is where we're going to be looking. mlh.link/Figma, popping it over in the chat. You can also check out the Discord announcement if you miss it. Um, but honestly, super easy like verification process. I think I was able to get mine done in like a minute once I started school up again. Um, but yeah, you just fill this in. As soon as you submit it, if it's one of like, if you, let's see, as soon as you submit it, it generally takes just like about a minute for it to fully process and then just give you the green light, and then you already have access to it, which is super cool. You need to keep in mind though when you use Figma that the education plan, you need to kind of manually toggle it on whatever Figma team spaces projects it is that you're working in. And if you do toggle it for a team space, then anybody who does not have the education plan is gonna kind of get kicked out a little bit. I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, but let's get back into this. This is going to be a little tour of what the Figma layout is. I'm trying to figure out whether or not it would be good to actually pull it up. I think I'm going to smush this together. That way we can actually take a look at the Figma space while taking some inspiration from the slide deck. I mentioned earlier about like the teams thing. This is the little pop-up that you're going to get when you apply the education thing to a team. And team spaces just like is a place, like it's like a drive folder. It's just a place where all of the files that you're working on are going to live. Resources is kind of just like templates and stuff. And I think that's also where design systems will live. We can check that out later. But yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and click into a team project. Go ahead and click create. And I'm going to make sure I go into design. You can see there's a few other things out here. I would encourage you to check it out. Buzz and make. Bam, bam. Okay, so as we can see here, we've got the 3 different bars that the slide deck is suggesting that we have. Something that I want to also show is that like I don't like clutter personally. Like I always keep like a empty desktop. We can take a peek here. See, I don't like having anything on my desktop. I like things cleaned. And thankfully, Figma's got me here. We can hide our sidebars if it's too bothersome. I'm going to keep them up for now so that we can actually do a proper tour of this. Very generally, the left side is where the contents lives. Sorry, I just realized my hand was in the way. The left side is where the contents lives. The right side is where details of the content that you're exploring is. So if you don't have anything selected, then it's just going to be more general project-wide kind of details. And then at the very bottom, this is where our physical tools are. So if you want to be swapping between different modes, this is how we do it. Okay, let's see what else is in our tour. I am working on a laptop right now, so I'm going to be using a touchpad, but you can also space and left click. If you have a mouse that has a scroll wheel, I like to personally use the middle mouse button and drag. That's something that's consistent across a few other creation kind of tools, which is super nice. It's really hard to see if I'm actually moving around here without some sort of frame of reference. So I'm just going to go ahead and toss in a frame, 2-finger mouse drag. There we go. I think we're passing this tutorial, chat. Zoom in and out. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I'm just pinching with my 2 fingers. Okay, cool. So toolbar, handy dandy shortcuts first to check out. I'm gonna go ahead and hide these things. That way it's a little easier to check out. We can also see here that there's a pretty cool grid here. I think this is sets to be 1 pixel. I don't remember how we set the actual scale for this. Yeah, there we go. Pixel grid. Let's actually start moving around, checking out some of these things. So we can select the move tool, which should be the default tool that you have. And so, yep, I can move this thing around. F to create a frame. As you can see here, whenever you press F, you actually get the option to choose different frame sizes. If you just do a default one, it's just going to be this one frame. I think it's like 256 by 256. Actually, let's take a peek here. No, it's 100 by 100 pixels. Okay, so rectangle, bam, bam, drag select. There's a cool radius thing that you can do here. Very handy. um, I get actually a little frustrated when I'm using other design tools, and like the radius tool is like super weird to use. This just feels super intuitive. Pen tool. So if you're into vector-based arts, this is super handy. I actually have used this on multiple occasions to just like bash out like some vector art. I get the sense that we're doing this kind of like abstract art session impromptu a little bit. And let's see if we can make this pretty cool. Now we got like a pseudo Pac-Man octagonal, polygonal kind of thing going on. Okay, let's go ahead and click out of the pen tool. That way this thing can set in as its own shape. I'm gonna go ahead and make a text block now. Howdy. Let's just do that. Okay, cool. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and make a comment now. Ryan says hi. Okay, we are now missing actions. Let's try out actions. So this is kind of like the VS Code's command prompt if you've used that before. Honestly, it's super handy knowing that there's a bunch of uh, tools that have started adapting this use the mouse less and the keyboard more kind of mindset. I honestly really love that. So this is an example of that. Let's see. There's a few. I haven't explored this in a while. Settings things, assets. Ooh, this is really handy to have because that is way easier than switching over to here and here when you want to be taking a look at all of the layers. Okay, and let's see, plugins and widgets. I usually use one for just like popping in basic assets. Let's see if I can actually pull in like an Unsplash one. I'm gonna pop in some lettuce because I do love me some leafy greens. Nice. So we've got a beautiful stock image right here. I accidentally put it in like a weird angle there. Let's actually set this to fit. And then we'll play around with that some more later. I just want this to be schmollen. So we can fit in our tiny little box that we have right here. Cool. So I'll show you some more tools later when we get there. For now, let's just finish this tour. We can also toggle in and out of dev mode. I'm going to go ahead and do that using the shortcuts. And so we see here that a few things have changed. Our toolbar changed very notably. If you don't want to use the shortcut or you forget the shortcut like I often do, you can just like toggle this little thing down here. Just switch between the different modes. Super easy to be able to change kind of mindsets around that, lenses even. I think one of the main ways that I would be using dev mode to get started with is just like very basic, just like mark ready for dev. And so if you do that, you you will just see a nice little flag saying, yeah, I'm ready to implement. And that's viewable in all of the different perspectives as well. Anyway, we'll check out some more tools once we're done with the tour. I think there's a few other things to do. Yeah. Okay, so let's actually switch right back to design mode. We've got the layers. This is where all the content lives and the order of which it is. And so if I wanted to make it so that this rectangle, for example, is on top of our polygonal Pac-Man, we could just rearrange it like that. So we can create subgroups. This is very handy for making sure that uh, your layouts don't do funny things. Uh, we'll explore that in just a second. But yeah, we also have assets. This is where our libraries live. You can see here that there's these things that's called components. We'll explore what that means in a little bit, but you can think of them as building blocks, like kind of Legos, things that we build apps with. So an example of a component might be a button. Okay, let's keep on moving. So onto the right sidebar, as I mentioned before, these are the details. So these are kind of like the global scale details. If you don't have like a big system yet, and you're still like very early in the prototyping phase, um, you can also just like rely on creating more project scoped style choices. I think this is really handy for like poster design. Um, let's say if you wanted to make a consistent text style. So this is my quotes. We could actually just set that to be any font that we want, or we can even change this kind of thing. Da, 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 da. Okay, and so now, if I wanted to change this style into something that is consistent with an existing style guide, I can just apply my style just like that. I can also break it if I don't actually want that to be attached. But this is really handy if you've got like a whole bunch of other things to change. Um, Sorry, my screen froze a little bit. The one that was displaying my my stream. Okay, where was I? Styles. I'm not gonna dig too much deeper into it. I think it makes a lot more sense when you actually play with it yourself. Let's see what else it is to cover here. We've got a lot of positioning kind of tools. Let's see if we can actually get that to pull up. So that only happens when you actually pull something up over here, like actually have something selected. So if I've got my text selected here, this is where the position starts showing up. See, we can change positions just like that. There's even been a few times where what I'll do is I'll like manually change the X, Y, and Z. So this is actually 100 pixels. So I know I can just change that to be 50. Um, yeah. And so for the programmers in the crowd, you'll be very pleased to know that I believe, I'm pretty sure actually, that these also accept variables. I know Figma added in variables a while back. I don't remember how to do them. Variables, create. Well, let's just change this to be a number. Make this like 4 or something. Okay, so now we've got that variable there. I'm pretty sure. Number. Ah, okay, maybe it doesn't work there. I know it definitely works down here. Whenever you have this hexagon with a dot in the middle, that's the variable symbol. So if we wanted to do that, we can do that. I'm gonna not do that though. Oh man. Okay, let's actually just leave that as is. Okay, let's keep on moving. Yep. If you want some more things, let me actually go ahead and copy paste this. Whoop. Da, 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 da. Actually, you know what? I think it's probably easier to just take the short link there. Figma resources. Okay, so let's actually get started with the actual design projects that we want to work on. Looks like the first thing that we're going to be doing is, well, actually, what I want to do is I want to make this an actual named project. Let's call this GHW and I think as far as apps go, let's make a lettuce card collection. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to untoggle this for dev because we're not actually ready for development yet. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. That way we just have like a fresh page. I'm gonna go ahead and actually, let's just follow the tutorial properly, yeah? I'm gonna hit text. We're gonna start this. My first lettuce. So we're gonna treat this as a title. And then we're going to create a nice rectangle right above that. We're going to make a little bit of text. Looks like this next one's going, oh, you know something? I just realized that when I was talking about the title, it might have been applying, let's see if it specifically mentions something. Okay. So in this example, um, the slide deck is manually setting the formatting for this. We're going to be a little bit extra because I'm lazy and I don't want to do this again. We're going to actually change this from my quotes. We're going to change this to title. Actually, even lazier is we're going to actually just use the Figma simple design system. It says there's 327 components, but don't be afraid to use another one. OMG, it's Adam. Howdy. I don't have my cowboy hat because it's kind of hard to wear a cowboy hat with the set of headphones. Good to see you again. So I'm going to just go ahead and import in this library over here. We're going to click into this. I clicked way too fast. Click once, and then you'll see that it's wonderfully organized with all of these little folders. Most importantly, though, we're going to actually have some new text styles. Text styles, not textiles. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this style that was there. We're going to try to use the simple design system. So we are currently making cards. I don't want it to be that big, so I'm probably just going to grab a heading, apply this as a heading. There we go. Let's also scale this thing up to be just about the same. I just pressed the right square brackets in order to bring that a little bit lower. Okay, let's see what else it is that we need to do. It's time for the description box. I believe I actually already have a plugin to do some lorem ipsum for us. Yes. So let's apply some lorem ipsum in here. I just want one paragraph. I think 5 sentences per paragraph is appropriate. Maybe let's make this a little smaller. If we're making this like a card thing, 5 words per sentence. I think that's fine. Minimum sentence length. Let's bring this up a little bit. There we go. New Swedish words. I think that's fine. Faux academic neologisms. That's a pretty big word. I'm really curious to see what that looks like. So we're gonna bump that up. Bump that up to 10 maybe. Buzz punchline. Is headline, is name. Begin with lorem ipsum. Okay, so neither of these are going to be headlines. We're just going to leave that as is, and let's see what that generated. That is a lot of Swedish. Maybe I'm going to adjust that. Less Swedish words, more academia. Okay. I think we've de-Swedishified a little bit. Maybe a little too much. We're going to roll with this for now. We can come back to it if we want. Let's see. I'm going to pick another font that I think feels appropriate for this. Maybe body base. Let's try that. I'm also kind of eyeing body small. I think that works. If you have any strong opinions about that, feel free to drop it in the chat. Also, sorry, I'm just realizing that like I've been kind of like zooming in, like kind of off screen. Let's make sure we're a little more balanced. Posture check. All right, I'm gonna pop this into frame. That way I don't lose it. Let's see what else this is looking for. We're looking for an image. Okay, so way ahead of us, I've already prepared a lettuce picture. Let's also actually make sure that this stuff shows up here. So here's what I believe is happening. Since we're actually able to see that this stuff is in here, but nothing's showing up, we're going to need to change the fill color. So let's go ahead and I wonder if we can actually apply this to the setting. Nope, that looks like it's mostly just font things. So we're going to go ahead, grab these two. We're going to apply the style by clicking onto the 4 circles. And I think, let's make sure we're actually grabbing a text one. Give it a quick scroll through. There's, let's see, text utilities, text, 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 text. Well, let's just do the defaults. Nice and easy. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just replace this image. Their beautiful lettuce over here. There's a few ways to actually add images in here. If you want to, you can actually just like, I don't remember which button it is. Oh, there we go. Not that hard. All you had to do is just scroll over the image. That's how you upload from the computer. Anyway, let's rotate this back to be a little more normal. I'm going to change the rotation 0 degrees, scale this thing up a little bit. That way we can fill the void that the rectangle had left us. I think I'm gonna also change this back to fill. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's take a look at what else we have to do. Create a frame already way ahead of us, or up, we're way ahead of the tutorial. Okay, so this is where it starts to get really cool. Up until this point, we've been kind of treating it just like a throw things onto a page and just kind of like see what happens. Now we're going to take advantage of the fact that this all lives on a computer and there are some cool software engineers that did some things. We're going to click onto the frame. This is also usable for if you are working with groups, if you've decided to group things together. We're going to use this frame for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to look over here for a long rectangle and then a small rectangle and then a little plus. Or we could also use the shortcut, which is Shift A. I'm going to use the clicking thing because I think that's a little more visible. We're going to click that. And we're going to see that our frame changed a little bit. Let me actually make this a little bigger so that we can actually see what's going on. You'll notice that it doesn't look perfect, but it looks like the frame kind of scaled itself so that it fits the image a little better, which is cool, as long as that's what it is that we want. Thankfully, auto layout gives us a bunch of details that we can actually start applying. So do we want everything to be aligned to the top left corner? I think that's fair. Do we want everything to be vertical? Yeah, more or less. As far as the height goes, let's see if we can hug contents. I think hugging contents, yeah, that's fine. So the reason why our text didn't end up in here and nicely formatted is because it's not actually in the frame at all. Let's actually just make sure that this is popped into the frame. There we go. Our beautiful text, our beautiful Swedish faux academia is kind of showing up there now. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of rename some things. That way I don't forget what each of these things are. Lettuce card. Lettuce picture. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. All right, next thing, my lettuce. Let's actually change this to just be called title. Just in case we decide to copy and paste this, we don't, misinterpret all of the things as my first lettuce. And then we'll just call this a description for now. There we go. Okay, I know it's going to be kind of hard to see what's going on in the tutorial, but honestly, I want to be walking you through everything anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Thank you. Thank you for the blesses. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's keep on moving along. Looks like the next thing is to add styling to this. Okay, so this is where the design fun really happens. You'll notice that there's a few things, these little handles on the sides. These are all adjustable. So if we wanted to change those margins, or I forget whether those are margins or something called something else. Padding. Yeah, so it's called padding. You'll notice that the vocabulary here is pretty similar to what it is that you might see on CSS. There's a reason for that. Let's see. I don't like how one of these is 23 and 24. We're going to make those two the same. So that just changed the padding a little bit. All right. Let's see if there's anything else that I needed to cover specifically. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any more specific things. So I'm going to just start making this look nicer. I'm going to look for corner radius of this frame. I believe it's this number right here. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and use an existing variable. So you'll see here, this is variables coming back to play. It's called 100. Keep that in mind. And this one is the actual number that we're going to be applying. Can you access these slides after the session and from where? Fantastic question. I can share these slides. I can attach it to the Discord announcements after this workshop. Okay, you'll just have to remind me when we get to the end of the workshop. How are we doing on time? It is currently 40 minutes into the hour. We've got 15 minutes to run through the rest of these things. Ah, thank you, Wei. I would also listen to Wei. Take a peek at the GHW bit right here. Let's see. Yeah, there's our slides. All right. Okay, so let's get back into it. We've got a nice and beautiful 4-pixel wide corner radius there. Let's give this a nice little background fill. I'm going to try to use... Oh, looks like there's a new color contrast feature. I don't know how to read that, so I'm going to turn that off. Let's see. Where are our styles? Okay, there we go. So let's see if we have a beautiful... Yes, we do. We have a beautiful green overlay that we can apply. I'm going to also add a stroke over here. Maybe we want to change this a little bit. I'm going to change this to be a nice dark green. I think this is also missing a corner radius, so we're going to add that in to just kind of make it feel a little friendlier, less like it's going to cut us. Okay, there we go. I think this is a pretty reasonable card design. Let's start with that. Kind of giving me some Pokemon cards or like collectible card game kind of vibes. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to, I mean, like all card collections, actually start making a card collection, or I guess a gallery. A gallery is technically what it's called. But yeah, it's not really a good card collection if you don't actually have a whole bunch of them. So we're going to see if we can just make a place for us to just start spamming this. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Ah, yes, I was going to miss that. Let's apply auto layouts here. This doesn't really make sense if you've only got one thing, but we can actually just start spamming this. I think instead of following the tutorial properly, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this. The command for that is Control D or Command D. I'm gonna do that. Let's go a little crazy, yeah. We got nice 6 cards. I think that's a pretty good start. Now it's kind of scaling really far to the side, so make things a little bit easier for our kind of very vertical layout of a screen layout for my computer, at least. We're gonna try to make it so that it actually wraps around itself. So let's apply this wrap right here, And instead of having it hug, let's actually set this to a fixed width. We're going to split this in half. So that's about 600, I'd say. Oh, I forgot to account for the padding. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to see what the padding is. The padding is 10 on each side. Let's make this 620, 640. Let's just bump this to 700. Oh, it's still not enough. Okay. I'm going to grab this handle right here. Just kind of drag that out. There we go. Okay, so we finally hit it. Looks like the wrap point was about 708. I wonder if I can just... Is it 700 flat, I wonder? Oh, so it's just past 700. No, it's just past 705. Okay. Well, I'm glad we found it. Okay. I think also just trying to make this a nice center alignment. Not that it's going to be too big of a deal. I think I also actually wants to add in a stroke out here. Let's make this, I think that's the same color. Yeah, there we go. Now it blends less into the background, which unfortunately means that if we want to make it consistent, means we have to delete all of these and start over again. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That was kind of weird having it fill in from the side, so I'm going to put it back in the top left corner. Okay, so let's see what else it is that we're doing. Ah, it says that this is off enough for the demo, but because I love going off script, we're gonna actually, I'm gonna show you another really cool thing. So Figma, as you can, or as we just demonstrated, if we wanted to make a change in all of them, it can be a little bit difficult to constantly replace all of the things that are floating around. Thankfully, there's these things that are called components. And so you may remember me talking about components earlier. Inside Figma's simple design system, it provides a whole bunch of components, which is really cool. And some of them are like really big, some of them are rather small. But sometimes you don't want to be using somebody else's building blocks the whole time. Otherwise, it's kind of defeats the purpose of designing things, right? If you're using somebody else's things. So we're going to make our own components. So I'm going to click into this very first lettuce card. I'm going to right click it. And I'm going to look around until I can see the thing that says components. So I'm going to go ahead and create the components. And at first glance, it doesn't really seem like anything changed, except now the outline is purple. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that this is now our primary components. I actually usually like to just take out my primary components and put this on another page. But since this is a smaller project, I'm actually just going to leave it just outside of the actual frame that we're working with. I'm going to make this, call this the card collection. Okay, and probably just like delete a couple of these. Yeah, we don't need that many here. Just enough to kind of keep its form. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to hit duplicates. And notice that it just kind of like showed up again. So this is very similar to what it is that we were doing before. I'm going to keep this original one over here. That way we can have a frame of reference as to what it looks like to design with and without components. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue duplicating this. So now we've got 5 components copies, and then we've got 1 imposter, which is just like a, he's just doing what he can. So let's see what happens if I try to change something here. To instead of my first lettuce, let's change this to my second lettuce. Little exclamation mark too. Looks like that got a little taller. I'm gonna remove that a little bit. Oh no, now the card's not the same size. I think we need to set a standard size. Looks like 211 is the current. No, 315 is the current height. Let's set this to be. Let's see if we can find something in here. Nope, it doesn't actually exist yet. Let's add a new thing. We're gonna call this the card height. And of course, in my infinite wisdom, I forgot to actually change that variable number. We're going to change this to 315. I think that was the card height that we were looking for. Yeah, okay. So we're going to apply that variable card height. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing here. Instead of it being 312, it'll now be card height. Cool. Okay, actually, I should have changed it over here instead when I was trying to change the card heights. And this is going to be really important in just a second. So we see here, actually, I'm going to call this one different lettuce. Okay, let's see what happens. Like, let's say we wanted to change the background's color of this card instead of this being that light green. We actually want to make it kind of a mustardy color. So if you have a component and you change the original components that you made, it will adjust all of the other instances of that component into the same whatever it is that you changed to it. But you'll notice that the different lettuce didn't do that. That's because it's not actually attached to anything. This just kind of exists on its own, whereas this one exists as a reference for all of these other cards. And so, okay, cool. But what if I wanted to make it so that not all of the things are the exact same thing, right? Like, let's say that I wanted to change this card to be a different name. Well, we can do that. Lettuce 2. And now, if we want to change this, let's continue changing the backgrounds. Maybe we wanted to change it to more of a pinkish color. You'll see here that the changes made to this card is actually still pretty consistent. Now, what happens if we change this card to be something that's not what the primary has? Well, we can do that just fine. Let's see what happens if we change this thing to be different again. Let's make this a darker red. That way it's super obvious. You'll see here that the thing that was manually changed on a root component, sorry, on a child's component, otherwise known as, I forget if they actually have a name for this. But yeah, if you change a property of a specific thing, then it'll retain that difference. I'm gonna actually just move this back into the original kind of green color, just because I think we did kind of nail the color design. What happens if you delete the main one? Ooh, fantastic question. Let's see what happens. Do you think A, it is going to delete all of the children? Or B, do you think it's going to delete just the main one and then it's going to assign a new leader? Or C, do you think it's going to be, what's an alternative? It's going to just delete and then all of the children will stay there. All of them? As in all of them are going to be deleted? Okay, let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and select this and I'm going to press delete. Okay, so things didn't catastrophically change. It's just that the original component left. And we actually see here that these cards are actually still purple, which means that they're still kind of children of something. But we don't actually have access to the original parents anymore, which is really sad. These are all orphans. So what we can do is we can actually just, I think, I don't know if there's a way to restore a parent without just like straight up undoing it. Let's see if we can, let's see, restore main component. Oh, okay, you can. Okay, cool. So if you accidentally delete it and you lose your undo stack, you can always just restore your component. Let's say in this example, you don't actually like the yellow at all, and you made too many changes here that you don't really need to care about anymore. We can actually just go in here and reset instance, and it will be the exact same as when, like, you know, the prime components, the original components. So if you do screw up, there are a bunch of different ways to get back to restoring whatever the problems it is that you had. There's a few other things here that are pretty interesting. You can just attach an instance, like let's say that this component is now all grown up and no longer needs to have a parent component. You can completely remove them. And now we don't have to worry about the changes affecting them. I'm going to go ahead and undo that, though, because I like having these 5 children and then the 1 adult. all of the children. There's another really cool thing I want to show you. This is very handy for a lot of the Figma techniques, especially around animations. It is the idea of a variant. So if we actually pop into this, oh my gosh, I just realized that I actually need to talk about dev mode. So I'm gonna talk about that. Let's see if we can blitz through the actually important like dev mode things before we come back to the variants. I got a little sidetracked. Sorry about that, folks. Um, so let's switch over to dev mode real quick. We've got our card collection over here. Very cool. Okay, so now that we've actually got something here, I'm gonna mark this ready for development. This thing shows up on the left, which is pretty cool. We can also see and switch between different pages. And I think, no, it doesn't seem like we can actually mark the whole thing as ready for dev. Okay, but yeah, there's a bunch of like status logs, which is pretty cool. I guess we can compare with recent versions for a little version control. I mean, there wasn't really anything before. Let's see what shows up. Yeah, okay, we're tight on time, and I'm doing a terrible job of speed running through this. I think very importantly, you'll see this thing that says code, and you can see list. So this just lists out all of the attributes of whatever's going on here. We've got this code. Then we actually have this toggle for the different ways that we can export this. And so we've got CSS, iOS, Android, and then a few like plugins that we can try using. You'll see that this says code gen. So by code gen, that basically means it's actually going to convert your Figma things into actual code, which is pretty rad. There isn't one that Figma, I guess, like actually did themselves, just because there's all these handy plugins that already exist. I'm gonna go ahead and use this very first one. We can also actually set everything to be a set of pixels set to rem. That way, it actually scales to what it is we're looking at. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So now everything's in terms of rem. Got a lot of ugly numbers, but it is what it is. We'll worry about that later. We could actually just copy the straight up CSS here. But even easier is I'm gonna actually just yoink all of this as an HTML code. I'm gonna yoink that. Looks like it's not too crazy, like 30 lines of code. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then we've got the text styles. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and go over to a open VS Code instance. I got too many tabs open. Oh, that is different workshop. Ah. Okay, let's go. And I opened it up again. I'm gonna hide this. Okay, so I've already prepared an index.html file. We're gonna copy paste that in, and let's see. I think that's going to be enough. Let's go ahead and now open this over in a browser. So I'm gonna open up a new tab. Open up a new tab, and then I'm just gonna hit Command O to open these things up. And oh, that's a little awkward. You get to see all the things I've got downloaded. I'm hoping there's nothing too crazy there. And I opened up the same folder again. Let's pop over here, pop into not Gemini demo. Okay, there we go. So, what do we see here? We see basically the same layout that we had earlier. I think this thing, yeah, we actually have the relative scaling. The power of auto layouts is really showing here. I think you should try to like a lot of beginners in Figma, they don't really use auto layout much. They just kind of put it out there, but then like, there's a problem with like using very absolute positioning. You can see the image asset didn't actually seem to load properly. Let's see. There's probably an error in here. Nope. I think it's probably because the Unsplash image link is a little janky. Yeah, and it just placed a placeholder image instead, which honestly should be easy to play around with that. Yes, thank you, Wei, for answering that question. There are other options for exports. We'll quickly review that, and then I believe that's going to be it for... Oh, it opened up in the window that I was trying to use. Ah, clicked too far, too many places. Okay, cool. So here we are. Let's see what other code gen options there are. Svelte, Tailwind. React with Tailwind, Swift UI, style components. Let's see. I'm sure that like if you have a different place that you like to code, you can also do that by browsing other CodeGen plugins. Okay, that's pretty much it as far as time goes. I want to send you all off over to the very next stream. I do believe that it's actually going to be our resident Wei who's going to be running that workshop. He's going to be running it on, I believe it's agent mode with GitHub. Let's actually check that. Yes, yes. Okay, Wei's going to be helping you all cook up a new GitHub profile readme. So make sure you join him over there and give him a big shout. Yeah, he deserves all of the viewership. All right. Take care, everybody. It has been a pleasure. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye.